Namaste.
Namaste. You all able to see the message, right?
Yes.
Yeah, please read that. This message is from Jagat Guru Shankaracharya Chandrasekhara Saraswati Swamiji.
Rama Rama Mayam Sitam Mayam Shri Ramudu Madan Mayam. This is Telugu. Probably many of you recognize this. And here Saint Tyagaraja says, Sitamma Mayamma. Sita is my amma, our mom. And Sri Ramudu Ma Tandri. Sri Rama is my dad. Vatatmaja, Saumitri, Anjaneya, Lakshmana, Garuda, Shatrugna, Jampavan, Bharata, and all those other people. Sodarulu Maku. They are my brothers. Tyagaraja was so great because he actually saw Rama. Not only did he see Rama, everybody around him had a darshan of Rama as well. He lived from 1767 to 1847 AD. So this is just a few hundred years back, and he was able to see Rama in real life. Should give us all hope that if we are devout, we may directly see Rama too. Remember on Tuesday I said you should listen to your parents just like Rama. I'm sure it made your parents very, very happy. Itam mayam Shiramudu Matandri. Now you tell your parents you are praying for Rama and Sita to instill their divine qualities in them. Sita and Rama are always patient. They never get angry unless somebody moves away from the path of Dharma, even though they went through lots of their hardships. So just remember the line, Sitamma, Mayamma, Shiramudu, Matandri. Just tell that to your parents and say, I am praying for you too. Also, remember we did puja in our minds. And you must have seen the video where I said Hanuman wanted to come and visit all of us. Some of you probably think, hey, I am picturing Bhagwan in my mind, and I'm saying Hanuman is coming and asking me. Of course, I'm imagining in my hand. Is this all real? Do you remember the scene in Harry Potter where he has died and talks to Dumbledore in the train station? He asks Dumbledore, is this real? Or is this all happening in my head? And he says, of course it's happening in your head, Harry. But why on the earth should it mean it's not real? Anjaneya still performs lots of miracles. When I was in high school, I visited Chennai, specifically a temple called the Nanganallur, where this Anjaneya right here, it's a huge Anjaneya statue. It was being made. But he was lying down, covered in grains. I couldn't see the statue fully. I also have put some grains on top, but I was told I couldn't take a close look. Around the same time, the person who was in charge of building that entire temple was visiting Mahapariva. Mahapariva inquired very happily about the full shape of Anjaneya. He wanted Ramani Mama, is the person who was building this temple, to describe the Anjaneya part by part. He explained and answered all the questions. Finally, Periva asked, what about Anjaneya's tail? How is it? And Ramani Anna said, the tail is beautifully raised above Anjaneya's head, Periva. He was thinking Periva is going to be very happy about it, but Periva was just silent for a few minutes. Ramani Anna started to feel uneasy. Finally, Periva said, you say you're going to keep Sri Rama there opposite Anjaneya. Maruti never stands with his tail raised above in front of Sri Rama. Ramani Anna now got really worried. Oh, Periva, what can I do now? The deity is almost ready. We are doing Balalayam. That's what, when you put a statue in the grains, is called. Muhurtam date, everything has been fixed. If we have to remove the tail now, we have to reorganize everything. The Pratishta cannot be done. Everything, you need a solution for it. Periva said calmly, just go ahead with your schedule. Everything will be all right. Anjaneya will cooperate. Periva then blessed them with prasadam. Ramani Anna came back to Nanganallur and he was thinking only about Anjaneya's tail. After Balalayam was complete, they did all the homams and rituals and brought a big crane. This is so huge, you need a crane to lift Anjaneya. And to their great astonishment, they found that the tail had already been cut off so beautifully at just the right place, as though it had been done by a sculptor, that too without any flaw. This happened in the last century. Meanwhile, I had no idea any of these miracles were happening. We left Nanganallur and we went back to our ashram, and my guru asked someone to come do Ramayana Parayanam. He had someone read Ramayana for several days. When it was done, he told us to buy a bunch of bananas like this and asked us to hang it right outside the house. The next morning, an army of about 50 monkeys came to the house and took all the bananas. It was the one and only time I had ever seen monkeys in that house, just like the only time I saw a snake in that house. So it's not an exaggeration to suggest that Anjaneya is actually sitting and listening to all of us, as is Mahaparivar too. Okay, so today's session is brought to you by 1877 Rama for Kids. 1877 Rama for Kids. 1877 Rama for Kids. 1877 Rama for Kids. Keep him in your heart today. Tuesday, we saw that Rama helped Vishwamitra finish his yajna without any trouble from Rakshasas. Should be no surprise. You know about Mahavishnu and yajna, right? You all probably know a little bit of Vishnu Sahasranama. You've heard this. Yajno yajnapatir yajva yajnango yajnavahanaha yajnabrat yajnagrat yajni yajnabhuk yajnasadhanaha yajnandakrit yajnaguhyam annamannada evacha. Mahavishnu is in the form of yajna. He is the master, the performer, the supporter and protector of the yajna. He does yajna when the world begins and the world ends. Why? Because Prano yajnena kalpatam, apano yajnena kalpatam, vyano yajnena kalpatam, yajno yajnena kalpatam. He starts the yajna so that life can form. Yajna is the way to reach Mahavishnu, and he is also the hidden meaning of yajna. So it should be no surprise the Mahavishnu in the form of Rama protected Vishwamitra's yajna. The purpose of Sri Rama's birth was not unknown to Rishi Vishwamitra. And he knew the powers of the weapons he had given to Rama. But he was so happy at the thought of the next service he will be doing to Rama. And that was the princess' marriage with Sita. The rishis assembled there said to Rama, "We want to travel to the kingdom of Videha, where in the capital city Mithila, Janaka, the illustrious philosopher king, rules. He wants to perform a great yajna. All of us are going there, and it will be good if you and your brother Lakshmana would please accompany us. It is proper that the prince of Ayodhya should see the marvelous bow in the court of Janaka." So it was decided. Rama and Lakshmana went with Vishwamitra to Janaka's city. Janaka, the king of Mithila, was an ideal ruler. He was a much revered friend of Dasharatha. When Dasharatha did yajna for getting Rama, he didn't just send ministers to Janaka, send messengers to Janaka, he sent his own ministers. Janaka was a brave king. He was well versed in Shastras and Vedas as any rishi. He was a beloved student of Yajnavalkya. The lessons between Janaka and Yajnavalkya are collected as Brihadaranya Upanishad. You know what a Upanishad is? They're extracts from Vedas done by rishis. In Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna talks about King Janaka as an example of a karma yogi. Do you know who is a yogi? Someone who just knows how to do yoga like this, bending up and down. Do you think yoga is just a form of physical exercise? No, that's just one type of yoga. There are many, many types of yoga. You know, when Vishnu came to earth as Rama, Mahalakshmi has to come to earth as Sita. So she has to pick a parent. Janaka was picked as the worthy father of Sita Devi. One time, Janaka wanted to do a yajna. And they chose a site, and Janaka plowed it with his own hands. As usual, As he was he dug the earth little by little. As the field was being cleared and leveled, Janaka saw among the shrubs a divinely beautiful baby. Janaka had no children, so he accepted the infant as Mother Earth's gift to him. Taking the child in his arms, he went to his wife and said, "Here's a treasure for us. I found the child on the yajna site and we shall make it our own." And she agreed. The beauty of the Mother Earth cannot be seen by the people in its entirety. You can only see a little piece of earth at a time. But Sita, coming from Mother Earth, was a beauty, possibly even prettier than Mahalakshmi herself. And people could see all of her together in Sita. When Sita reached the age of marriage, Janaka was sad that he would have to part with her. Though he tried hard, he was not able to choose a prince worthy of Sita. Long ago, pleased with the yajna performed by Janaka, Varuna presented to him Rudra's bow and 2 arrows. This was an ancient heavenly bow, which no ordinary man could even move. When Sita was a child, Janaka saw his daughter Sita effortlessly lift the divine bow of Shiva, and in order to worship it. It was a major astonishment to Janaka, because he thought, how could Sita, being such a young girl, could play with the Shiva Dhanush so easily? Dhanush means bow. And which was so heavy that it could not be handled or lifted by any single person. 18 people had to carry it. So an extreme determination came in Janaka's heart. He thought only that person could be a match for the most beautiful Sita, who could be capable enough to take aim with the divine bow of Sita. So he made an announcement. He said, anyone who wants to marry Sita has to be able to lift the Shiva Dhanush. This was kept by him as an honored family treasure. Yeah. Many princes who had heard of Sita's beauty went to Mithila only to return disappointed with their heads down. No one in the assemblages of gods, demigods, Rakshasas, Gandharvas, Yakshas, Kinnaras were capable of taking aim with this bow. In fact, most were rendered incapable even in lifting it off the ground. Now, Janaka was getting extremely disappointed that this may never happen. Little did he know that his prayers will be answered very, very soon. Led by Vishwamitra, the rishis from Siddhashrama were proceeding towards Mithila, with bullock carts transporting their luggage. The animals and the birds in the ashram set out to follow Vishwamitra, but he gently told them, stay behind. It was evening by the time they reached the river Sona. They rested there for the night, Vishwamitra telling Rama Lakshmana the history of the place. Getting up in the morning, they continued their journey and crossed another river, not very deep, and by noon, they were at Ganga. They bathed in the holy river, and the rishis did rituals at the river for their ancestors. They pitched tents on the side and created a mini ashrama there, performed their pujas, cooked their own food. Meal over, they sat around Vishwamitra, who at the request of the 2 princes told them the story of Ganga. Himavan, the king of mountains, and his wife Menaka had 2 daughters, of whom Ganga was the elder. Himavan sent her to the land of Devas in response to a request, and she dwelt with them. Uma, the younger daughter of Himavan, married Shiva and became Uma Maheshwari. Sagara, former king of Ayodhya, had no son for a long time, but he had 2 wives, Kesini and Sumati. He went to Himalayas and performed a lot of tapas. Rishi Bhrigu, very happy with the king, blessed him and said, you will get a number of children and acquire eternal fame. One of your wives will give birth to an only son, and through him your line will continue. The other queen will bear 60,000 strong-armed sons. Sagara's wife bowed before the rishi and asked which one of them would get the only son, which one will get 60,000 children. Bhrigu asked them, what do you wish? Kesini said she would be satisfied with the one son who would continue the line. Sumati chose the other alternative. Be it so, said the rishi. Satisfied, the king and his wife took leave of the rishi and returned to Ayodhya. In course of time, Asamanjas was born to Kesini. Sumati gave birth to a big mass, which divided into 60,000 babies. This army of children was taken care of by nurses. Years rolled by, and while the 60,000 grew into strong, handsome princes, Asamanjas turned out to be a cruel lunatic. Naturally, people hated this maniac and banished him from the country. To the great relief of all, Asamanja's son, Amshuman, was the opposite of his father and was a brave, virtuous, amiable prince. Once, King Sagara launched a great horse yajna, and Prince Amshuman was in charge of the main horse. But Indra, in the guise of a Rakshasa, managed to carry off the animal. The Devas regarded yajnas by mortals as a challenge to their superiority and liked throwing obstacles their way. If all obstacles were overcome and yajna was completed, they accepted the offerings. And then he who performed the yajna got due reward. The king was greatly upset when he heard that his horse was stolen. He sent out his 60,000 sons to go search for the animals all over the earth. He told them, the loss of the horse not only means the yajna is stopped, but it will give us the entire kingdom a bad name. Go recover the horse, wherever it may be hidden. Eagerly, the sons of Sagara proceeded to search the entire earth, but the horse was nowhere to be found. They even started digging the earth to check underground, but they only managed to irritate people everywhere. The horse was not to be found, and when they reported their failure to the king, he told them, go ransack the Patala Bhumi, the netherworld as well. Princes did as they were told, and Patala, they saw the horse grazing in the corner of an ashrama, not far from the place where Rishi Kapila was sitting in meditation. The princes at once jumped to the conclusion that they had not only found the stolen horse, but also the thief. And they rushed to Kapila shouting, here's a thief. He's pretending to be a yogi and a rishi, but he is not. Kapila was chanting. He slowly opened his eyes, and the 60,000 princes were reduced to a heap of burning ashes. Indra, the real thief, had skillfully left the horse here with this very intent. A word from our sponsors, Drama Cricket Club. Rama 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 Rama. King Sagara waited in vain for the princes who had gone in search for the horse. After some days, he called his grandson Anshuman and he said, I am really anxious to know what happened to the princes who went to Patala. You are brave. Go there and find out what happened and come back. Anshuman went, closely following the path of the prince, and reached the Patala world, where he saw the big elephant standing guard at the four quarters. The guardian uttered encouraging words and said, you will succeed. Go look for your uncles. When in due course Amshuman entered and went round Patala, he was delighted when he found the horse, but was perplexed and distressed when all he saw was heaps of ashes all over the place. Could they be all that remained of his valiant uncles, 60,000 of them? Garuda, the brother of Sumati, who happened to be there, told Amshuman, these ash heaps are all that is left of the 60,000 sons of Sagara. Dear child, take the horse and complete the yajna. If the ashes are to be watered according to custom, the souls of these princes may rest in peace. But the only way you can do this is to bring Ganga down from the land of Devas. Amshuman rushed home with the horse and told the king what he found and what he learned. Sagara was immersed in sorrow at the fate that had befallen his 60,000 sons. Can you imagine losing 60,000 sons on the same day? However, the horse having brought back, he completed the yajna. Grieving over his lost sons and despairing them of ever bringing Ganga down from heavens, he died. Amshuman succeeded Sagara as the king of Ayodhya and was in turn succeeded by Dilipa, Bhagirath came after Dilipa. Still no Ganga. Amshuman and Dilipa both died, grieving that they were unable to bring Ganga for their salvation of their forefathers. Bhagirath was a valiant king. He had no children. Hoping to bring Ganga down, he left Gokarna for performing tapas, leaving the kingdom in the hands of his ministers. Bhagirath went through severe tapas. In fact, he did so severe, there is a saying for Bhagirath. They say Bhagirath Prayatnam. It means trying really, really, really hard. With fire on all sides and head exposed to the hot sun and taking food, but once a month he continued tapas. Brahma, pleased with this tapas, appeared before Bhagirath and asked, "What would you have?" He told him 2 wishes. "If you have pity on me, bless me with a child to continue my dynasty. Secondly, cursed by Kapila Muni, my ancestors lie in a heap of ashes. Those ashes should be washed by the waters of Ganga so that their souls may go to heaven. Please order Ganga to go down." Brahma said, "The Devas are pleased with your tapas. Your wishes are granted, but there is one difficulty. The earth cannot withstand the force of Ganga coming down. Only Shiva can stand it. Therefore, direct your tapas and prayers to him." Bhagirath renewed his tapas and continued long without food and water, and at last won Shiva's grace. Shiva appeared and told Bhagirath, "I shall fulfill your wish. I will receive Ganga on my head. May her grace be upon you." When Shiva promised to help Bhagirath, Ganga began coming down as ordered by Brahma. In her arrogance, she thought she would fall on Shiva's head and sweep him away towards Patala. Shiva decided to teach Ganga a lesson. The moment he willed it, the flood of waters that came on his head were held by his long hair, and Ganga was completely locked up. This was a lesson to Ganga for sure, but a heartbreaking disappointment to Bhagirath. Was nothing left for him but start to pray to Shiva again with tapas. This he did to such good purpose that Shiva took pity on him and gently let out a little strand of hair. And a little bit of the waters of Ganga came out in Bindusaras, from which they flowed down in 7 small separate streams. 3 of them flowed west and 3 east. The 7th river followed Bhagirath, who was full of joy at the approaching salvation of his ancestors. Ganga followed Bhagirath's chariot. The waters danced and shone like lightning flashes as the river made its course, and the Devas and Gandharvas assembled above witnessed this grand sight of the king bringing a river down from the heavens, sometimes slow and sometimes fast, now sliding down, now jumping up. The river went on dancing behind Bhagirath's chariot, and the folk of the heavens enjoyed the sight all the way. On her course, Ganga damaged the Yaga platform by a rishi named Janu. The rishi got angry. He took the entire flood in his palm and just sipped it off. Ganga disappeared again. Bhagirath was sorely perplexed. The Devas and other rishis approached Janu and begged him to forgive Ganga and allow Bhagirath to reap the fruits of his great tapas. The sage relented and let Ganga out through his right ear. That is why we still touch our right ear when we do something. Right after you do pranayamam, you touch your right ear because it is believed that your right ear has Ganga. With the holy waters, finally, Ganga reached Patala, and with the waters, he performed the funeral rites for his ancestors and secured them entry to heaven. Bhagirath's efforts, having brought Ganga down, she is known as Bhagirathi. After concluding this narrative, Vishwamitra blessed the princess. The sun is setting. Let's say our evening prayers in the waters of Ganga that your ancestor brought down this world. So Vishwamitra sings a song to Rama to put him to sleep. Shri Rama is looking at Rama in amazement. It is Parabrahman in human form and sleeping on mere grass. The next morning he goes to wake up Rama. And the words how he woke up Rama, this is how the entire world wakes up Rama. Kausalya Supraja Rama Purva Sandhya Pravartade. Kausalya Supraja Rama. He utters his mother's name. Kausalya's son Rama. Sandhya Pravartade. Sandhya, the early morning dawn has come. Uttishta narashardhula kartavyam daivamanhikam. For us, this is the line. Please wake up in our hearts, O Purushottama, so that we can perform our daily duties, kartavyam, and divine ritual, daivamanhikam, and do the ultimate duty of our lives. He knows that Rama may still miss his mom, so he reminds him. After a day's stay in the city of Vishala, Vishwamitra and his party left for Mithila. On the way, not far from Mithila, they saw a beautiful ashrama, which seems empty. Rama asked Vishwamitra, whose ashrama is this? It has ancient trees, and why is such a beautiful ashrama stand deserted? Vishwamitra replied, this ashrama is subject to a curse. Sage Gautama, Rishi Gautama lived here with his wife Ahalya, spending his days in peace and holy meditation. Ahalya was created by Brahma as one without any flaws. Can you imagine a person without any flaws? Indra wanted to disturb all the tapas that Gautama was performing, and one morning he waits till Gautama leaves the ashrama. He enters the ashram disguised as Gautama himself and commits Balaprayogam against Ahalya. Gautama on his way back sees his mirror image and through his Jnana Drishti realizes what happened. He curses Indra and comes in to see Ahalya. He sees the sorrow she...
What does Balapraga mean?
No one can console his wife but Rama. So he decides to save her with a curse. How could a curse save a person? He said, living on air, you shall stay here, unseen by anyone. If he stops right there, it's a curse. But he continues. After a long time, Dasharatha's son Rama will pass this way. When he sets foot in this ashrama, you will be freed from the curse. Welcome him as a guest. You will then recover your lost beauty. The Rishi then left his violated ashrama for Himalayas, engaging himself in tapas there. Ahalya, we can imagine, probably was doing tapas herself, chanting Ramanama. She was waiting there. It's not so easy to see Rama. Saint Tyagaraja chanted Ramanama 96 crore times. That's almost 1 billion times. Vishwamitra said to Rama, let us enter the ashrama. You will bring redemption to Ahalya and rekindle the light in her as the Rishi promised. And so they went into the ashrama. Rama gives peace to everyone. You enter the ashram and Nirjita Muni Shapa, you removed Muni's curse. Rama, after hearing the story of Gautama, went into the ashrama very carefully. He doesn't see Ahalya just as a person that he has to save. He sees her as a Rishi Patni who is doing great tapas in a hidden form and has to be respected. Tyagaraja Swami imagines this scene. Sri Rama Padama. Normally, Tyagaraja sings many songs saying, Rama, I want you. In this song, he tells Rama, I don't need you. I just need your feet. As Rama sets foot, miraculously, the curse was lifted. Ahalya stood before them in all her beauty. She emerged from behind the vines and trees, the way a full moon emerges from behind the clouds. Rama, he saved Ahalya. She was unseen. Unable to bear the sorrow of what happened to her, she was always shedding tears. And she was waiting for Rama. That's what Saint Tyagaraja sings in that Kirtana. Rama and Lakshmana touched the feet of the Rishi Patni, made pure by the long years of tapas. She welcomed the divine princess with all the hospitality due to them. A shower of flowers descended from the heavens as Ahalya shone like a goddess. Simultaneously, Rishi Gautama returned to the ashrama and received his wife back. Vishwamitra heads out to Mithila from Gautama ashrama. As they walk, Vishwamitra looks at Rama in surprise. Normally, humans hug people with their hands and kick people with their feet. Rama killed a Tataka with his hands and his feet turned Ahalya into a person. In Tamil, Kamban has this famous line, Mazhaivannathu annale, un kaivannam angu kanden, kalvannam ingu kanden. Some of the mothers will say, Kaivannatha kamichittiya. Kaivannam means, I saw what your hands can do. And now I have seen what your feet can do. Vishwamitra, Rama and Lakshmana stayed just outside Mithila in a park with mango trees. The Ahalya story was brought to you by Rama Cat Food. So good. Rama Cats, ask for it by name. Ram 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 Ram. A special day was about to dawn. And Vishwamitra wakes up Rama. Mammeluko Rama Melaina Sita Sameta Nabhagyama. His mouth. He's not yet. Sita Sameta. I'm pretending this is actually Tyagaraja's song. All the arrangements for Janaka's yajna had been completed, and many people had come from various kingdoms. Vishwamitra and the princess were duly welcomed. King Janaka visited the princess in the park. When he entered the park, he was stunned. Janaka was not easily attracted to earthly things, but he could not take his eyes off of Rama. He told Vishwamitra, I'm indeed blessed that you should attend my yajna, pointing to them. Who are these godlike youths? They resemble each other and carry their weapons like seasoned warriors. Who is the happy father of such great sons? Vishwamitra told Janaka that they were the sons of King Dasharatha. He narrated how they had protected his own yajna and destroyed the Rakshasas. They have come here, the Rishi said, to see the great bow of Rudra in your palace. Janaka understood the meaning of Vishwamitra's words, and he was so happy. The prince is welcome to come and see the bow. If he can string it, he will win the hand of my daughter. Many were the princes who saw the bow and went back, unable to even move it. I will be very happy if this prince succeeds where so many have failed, and I am thereby enabled to give Sita to him. Janaka then ordered his men to bring the bow, which was kept safe. It was brought on an 8-wheeled carriage and dragged like a temple chariot during a festival. Here, Janaka said, is Rudra's bow worshipped by me and my ancestors. Let Rama see this bow. After taking permission from Vishwamitra and the king, Rama stepped out to the iron bow case. All eyes were fixed on him in wishful expectations. It has never happened before, but the young prince of Dasharatha made it happen effortlessly. He lifted the bow in his hand like an elephant uproots a sugar cane. Opening the box, took it effortlessly like a garland of flowers, one end resting against his toe. It suddenly appeared like a circle in the sky. No one even realized when he took it in his hands. He strung it and drew it tight. Everyone only saw him standing with the bow drawn. He bent it and strung it and drew the string back with such irresistible force, the mighty bow snapped like a crash, like a clap of thunder. The awful crash reached all over the earth. The sun itself shook a bit. The earth shook. Gods, demons, and sages put their hands to their ears, and they all began to wonder what happened. When they realized where the sound had come from the heavens came down a shower of flowers. Janaka proclaimed, my beloved daughter shall be wedded to this prince. Vishwamitra told Janaka, send immediately messengers to Ayodhya to give the news to Dasharatha and invite him. Janaka's messengers reached Ayodhya in 3 days. They met King Dasharatha, who was seated like Indra on his throne, and said to him, Rishi Vishwamitra and King Janaka have sent you happy news. Your son Rama came to Mithila and has won our prince Sita by fulfilling the conditions set for her marriage. King Janaka eagerly awaits your gracious consent for the marriage and your presence and blessing at the festivities. Please start for Mithila immediately. Dasharatha had sent Rama with Vishwamitra with a heavy heart full of anxiety. He was thrilled with joy hearing this good news. told his ministers to prepare for the journey, and left the very next day for Janaka's capital. Dasharatha and his following reached Mithila and were received with an enthusiastic welcome. Janaka told Dasharatha, my yajna will soon be over. I think it's best to have the marriage as soon as the yajna is over, and sought Dasharatha's approval. Dasharatha said, you are the bride's father, and it is for you to order things as you wish. All the marriage arrangements were made. The invitee list was huge. Ninnu kanakana ruchira. Imagines Rama wearing golden clothes. He says it's an endless pleasure to see you being ready for your wedding day. At the appointed day and hour, giving away the bride, King Janaka said to Rama, here is my daughter. Yam Sita, this is Sita, Mama Sutta, my daughter. Sakadharma Charitava. She will support you on your path of Dharma. Praticha Chate Bhadram. Accept this prosperity to you. Panim, her hand. Panina, with your hand. Nishva, hold it. Yam Sita Mama Sutta Sakadharma Charitava. Praticha Chainam Bhadram Te. Panim Krunishva Panina. This sloka is uttered in every wedding in India. When the dad hands his daughter at the wedding to the spouse. There is a very important statement here. Sahadharma Charitava. He knows that Rama will always follow the path of Dharma. Just like all of you are always going to follow the path of Dharma, right? That's why you're attending Dharmamoolam. Make sure when you find a partner, that partner will be Sahadharma Charitava. The partner will also follow the path of Dharma for you. Thus, Sita was given by Janaka to Rama. Everyone blessed the couple. Sita Kalyanam Vaibhogame Rama Kalyanam Vaibhogame. Right after that, Lakshmana marries Urmila, Bharata marries Mandavi, Shatrugna takes the hand of Shrutakirti. Janaka tells all the four brothers, O descendants of Kakusta, Rama, Lakshmana, Bharata, and Shatrugna, you all are gentle. You possess sound characters. You're true to your words. Live with your wives happily. At the words of Janaka, the four princes took the hands of the four sisters with their own at the consent of Rishi Vasishta. The great noble princes, accompanied by their wives, went around the yajna fire. King Janaka and the rishis watched the directions of Vasishta, and in accordance with the Shastras, he conducted. Vasishta initiates homam to all the couples. You know that as soon as you get married, the first thing you will be taught is how to do homam. Tyagaraja Swami imagines a Nalungu ceremony where the couples play with flower balls and coconuts. It is entirely appropriate that we should conclude the first part of our storytelling with this divine marriage. I told your parents to chant Ramanama 70,000 times. I'm sure all of you have chanted at least 10,000 times. Some of you may have the goal of chanting 100,000 times and may even have finished that. If you have done that, you're all my friends. I am also in the 100,000 territory. Some of you may have decided that you're going to proceed to 1 million Ramanama. You and I are classmates because that is my goal too. And I'm about halfway there. Now, some of you may have set a goal of 10 million. That is 1 crore. Of course, that is going to take several months, perhaps a couple of years. You are going to be my masters. I bow to you. Just the desire to chant the Ramanama 1 crore times is enough for me to elevate you above my head. Let's conclude the session with this Mangalam from Saint Tyagaraja. He attempted 96 crore Ramanama, and hence finally saw Rama himself. Niname Rubamunako Nitya Jaya Mangalon Pavamane Sudadu Beto Padare Vindamunako Niname Rubamunako Nitya Jaya Mangalon Rajiv Nayana Tyage Rajadi Rajudaina Niname Rubamunako Nitya Jaya Mangalon Nitya Shubha Mangalon. Thank you.
I'll hand over to the Mahadi. She will teach you one slokam today.
Karagre vasate Lakshmi. Karagre vasate Lakshmi. Karagre vasate Lakshmi. Karamadhye Saraswati. Karamadhye Saraswati. Karamadhye Saraswati. Karamule tu Gauri Syat. Karamule tu Gauri Syat. Karamule tu Gauri Syat. Prabhate Karadarshanam. Prabhate Karadarshanam. Gurur Brahma.
Gurur Brahma. Gurur Brahma.
Gurur Vishnu.
Gurur Vishnu. Gurur Vishnu.
Gurur Devo Maheshwara.
Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha. Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha.
Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma.
Gurur Sakshat Param Brahma. Gurur Sakshat Param Brahma.
Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Gurur Brahma, Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shruti Smrti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Pada Shankaram Loka Shankaram Vakratunda Mahakaya Koti Surya Samaprabha Nirvighram Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Narayanam Padmabhuvam Vasishtham Shaktin Cha Tatputra Parasharancha Vyasam Sukam Gaudapadam Mahantam Govinda Yogindra Mathasya Shishyam Sri Shankaracharya Mathasya Padmapadancha Hastapalakancha Shishyam Tam Totakam Vartika Karamanyanasmat Gurun Santatamanatosmi Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Dharmo Vishwasya Jagatah Pratishtha Karagre Vasate Lakshmihi Karamadhye Saraswati Karamule tu Gauri Syat Prabhate Karadarshanam Samudra Vasane Devi Parvatastana Mandite Vishnu Patni Namastubhyam Padasparsham Kshamaswame Ahalya Draupadi Sita Tara Mandodari Tatha Panchakanya Smare Nityam Mahapataka Gange Cha Yamune Chaiva Godavari Saraswati Narmade Sindhu Kaveri Jalesmin Sannidhim Kuru Ayodhya Mathura Maya Kashi Kanchi Avantika Puri Dwaravati Chaiva Saptaita Mokshadaikaha अन्नपूर्णे सदा पूर्णे शंकर प्राणवल्लभे ज्ञानवैराग्यसिद्ध्यर्थं भिक्षा देहि च पार्वती ब्रह्मा मुरारिस्त्रिपुरान्तकश्च भानुश्शशी भूमिसुतो बुधश्च गुरुश्च शुक्रश्च शनिराहुकेतवः कुर्वन्तु सर्वे मम सुप्रभातम् आदित्याय च सोमाय मंगलाय बुधाय च गुरु शुक्र शनिभ्यश्च राहवे केतवे नमः कायेन वाचा मनसा इन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्या आत्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि। धर्मो रक्षति रक्षितः। हर हर शंकर, जय जय शंकर।